JT, it is yours.
Thank you. Guys, I'm not going to use you. I'm not going to use you. You can have a seat. I'm not going to use you. You can have a seat. Coach Hughes will use you. He's going next. Okay,
We're going to bring real
what I'm
quick,
gonna go
JT.
over-
We're going to bring over Eric Hughes as well, assistant coach for the Toronto Raptors, to work with JT.
I'm going to go over the 5 teaching points, or I'm going to talk to you about the 5 teaching
today,
points.
all right?
We'll go over the 5 teaching points that I look for when I'm working with shooters. Now, keep in mind, when I'm dealing with players, they're at the NBA level compared to you might be working with little kids. It all can be fairly relative because I still work with little kids. But the 5 things that I work for, the first thing that I look at is, does the player's feet match their elbow? Okay, and what I mean by that, a lot of people will teach you have to point your toes to the target, and I have to balance that out with how they lift the ball and whether or not their elbow goes out. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to be more apt to change their feet than what I am their elbow position, because changing their elbow position, depending upon how bad it is going to be easier to change their feet than what it is their elbow position. First point, feet match the elbow. Second point is hand position. Where do you put your hand on the basketball? The third point is your wrist. What does your wrist do? What does your wrist look like when you catch the basketball? The fourth thing is your lift. Now, when a lot of people talk about lift, that's in reference to how high you jump or how much you don't jump. When I talk about lift, I'm talking about where you start the basketball and where you lift it to, your release point. Okay, and the last teaching point is finish, follow through, extension on your follow through. One of those, basically the follow through. So you have feet match the elbow, you have hand position, you have wrist position, you have your lift, and you have your follow through. Okay, I'm going to talk about 2 of those things today, because we're very limited on time. The first thing I'm going to talk about is your hand position, where you put your hand on the basketball. I've been fortunate to have worked with a lot of NBA players, and the thing that I've learned from them is most of those guys put their hand in the middle of the ball. So when I'm dealing with little kids, a little catchphrase that I use is knuckle over the nozzle. The nozzle's in the middle of the ball. So I will tell them to put their middle knuckle over the nozzle of the basketball. So if you have an NBA ball, the logo, the Jerry West, is the middle of the ball. So I will look for that when I'm working with guys on their shooting. And with the speed of the game, the length, the athleticism, obviously it's hard sometimes to get your hand in the right position, but when you're warming them up, it's easier to do. Okay, the second thing that I want to talk about, I'm going to spend the most time on, is your wrist. Okay, one thing I learned during my 3 years in Portland dealing with James Jones, Steve Blake, Rudy Fernandez, Channing Frye, guys that could really shoot, and it's all relative to the team here with Bargnani, Barbosa, Kleza, Bayless, guys that are pretty good shooters, is what they're doing with their wrist. Okay? The thing that I learned the most my last year in Portland is the strongest part of your wrist is the outside. Okay, if you were just stand there and dangle your hands, strongest part of your wrist is the outside. You're going to have a 10 to a 15 degree turn in your wrist. Okay, which if you're going to shoot a basketball is not to your advantage. Okay, which is why I put tape on here. If you were to take a piece of tape from your knuckle, remember knuckle over the nozzle, and run it straight up your arm, you would want that tape to be, you would want a straight line like what you see here. Okay, you would want a straight line. But what happens a lot of times is when you have your hand on the ball because of the bend in your wrist, you lift the ball up and you're going to finish to the outside, and some kids would even finish to the inside. Okay, which that means the ball is going to go off this finger as opposed to these 3, specifically the middle one, and if it's going off this finger, it could go left, it could go right. Okay, so if you have your wrist straight, you have a much better chance of shooting the ball straight. Okay, that's what I teach, that's what I've learned. Okay, Not only that, but one thing that I also learned, because this is the strongest part of your wrist, if you can keep that wrist straight, you can do what I call a hammer, where when you lift the ball, that wrist can hammer back. It can go back. One of the better shooters in the NBA, Steve Nash, if you watch him shoot, he has a really good exaggeration of that wrist going back. So as coaches, when you're working with your kids, no matter how old they are, those 5 teaching points will help you no matter how big or how little they are. Okay? But you definitely want to have a straight wrist with your hand in the middle of the ball. Last thing I want to talk to you about is basically a visual of that. Okay, this is called the straight shooter. I invented this my last year in Portland, and I use this with players, especially younger players, and some of the guys here on the team. I'll use it with. And basically, what it is it's similar to if you're a little older, maybe you had a problem with your knee, and the doctor didn't want your knee to go side to side. Same thing with your wrist. So if you put this on, wrist goes back, wrist goes forward. Wrist goes back, wrist goes forward. Okay? But it's just kind of the science behind it is basically it helps eliminate any kind of ulnar and radial deviation in your wrist. Okay? Coach Hughes is going to go, and once he is done, I will answer any questions that you have. I would like to give you, if you look on the manual, my name is somewhere in there. If you put my name together and then the number 24, so it's my name 24 @gmail.com. If you have any questions at all, you can email me, and I will gladly email you back with whatever I can do to help you working with your kids on shooting. Okay?
Let's hear it for JT. Real quick, Coach Hughes, who does a lot of the workouts for the Toronto Raptors, decided not to go with a mic because, as he said, he's loud enough without it. And if you're out there on the concourse level, I think you'll be able to hear him as well. So, Coach Hughes.